Hey everyone, nice having you again and welcome to my Diablo Immortal channel. It's time now to have a look at the new legendary items for the Barbarian to check if they are worth it or not. So let's get right into it. So since the new update came out, I farmed pretty much, to be honest. Not a good work-life balance, to be honest, but I was able to get my hands on all of the 6 different new legendaries for the Barbarian, which is nice and which leads me to the fact that I can show them to all of you one by one now. So let's start with the first essence. I would say one of the most remarkable ones is the new helmet, which is called the Heartless Terror. Text reads as Demoralize now unleashes a roar that damages nearby enemies while also making you immune to loss of control and knockbacks. So this is nice. It's like the Crusader with his aura where he can not be knocked back anymore. And the Barbarian now got his hands on such a skill as well. So how does it look like? Let's equip it. It has a pretty large range. You see it, so you can hit many enemies. And what is nice, it has a very small cooldown, so you can use it very often. So it deals some damage, I think about 14k, 15k, which is not too bad, to be honest, on that range. So you will get a lot of assists in PvP. But what can we do with this essence now? We are immune to knockback. You have that nice aura around us. Looks pretty neat in my opinion. So together with a fire aura from the Wrath of the Berserker and that one, we're like a little flame angel. Nice. So what can we do? Of course, we got some essences to boost that one. I would say one of the most remarkable here is the offhand, the Dishonored blade. So when you read it, it's like Demoralize duration increased by nearly 40%. And what is nice, that benefits the duration of our knockback immunity. So when we fire it now, you will see we're going down to a cooldown of 2 seconds. So only 2 seconds left. If you have enough beneficial effect duration, I think you can even get it to 100% uptime. So that's pretty nice. What else can we do? I think we have a new essence as well that boosts that Demoralize skill even more. It's a main hand weapon and it's called, where is it? Here it is, Lion's Mane. Demoralize now also detonates the wounds of nearby enemies, immediately resolving any conditional damage effect. It's like they really did their peak on the Crusader and transported some of the skills to the Barbarian now. But that's good for us, so we're happy. Let's equip it and test it out. So anything works. Fire, poison, bleed, whatever you have. So the bleed damage from our cursed effects, let's burn it a bit. And if we go step away and fire that skill, everything will, the whole damage over time will be counted directly at that moment and you will have a huge burst effect. Okay, nice. So when we think about all the dot damages that we have, there's one set coming in mind which really is the king of the dot damages. It's a Banquet. And especially here, the 6-piece Banquet. So let's equip that one. And I can show you that this is really a good burst damage you can deal even in PvP. So the fire aura triggers it. We see the green bubbles around our hands, and then we can cast all of the damage at once. Nearly 300k damage as you see it. It's a nice burst one. And of course with that range and your fire aura, maybe even a fire sprint or anything, you can burn and affect the whole enemy gang, and then you can kick it off for all of them at once, which is a huge damage effect on the enemy team. Okay, so that's for now the first 3 essences that works pretty well with each other. Let's get to the next one. There's an offhand, which is also important to mention. It's one of the new essences, and it's called the Falling Thunder. Wrath of the Berserker also enrages you when you are near bleeding enemies, increasing the damage you deal by nearly 30%. Again, a nice damage boost. And one word here is very important. It says also. It's not a transformation skill for the Wrath of the Berserker, it's an additional transformation. So it works in parallel to our Sundered Legacy, which gives us that burn aura. You can see it by scrolling over the lore text. It would be grayed out if it not works in parallel. So both of them totally working. So this is nice. When we burn our enemies and bleed them, we get a lot of additional damage. Nice. So what can this do for us? When do we do bleed damage? We have a few new essences here that helps us. In the end, the first one is our cursed skill called Lashed. That's something many people do not know. The Lashed effect is a bleed effect. You see it when you hit the puppet, you instantly have 2 stacks or 3 stacks of bleed damage on the enemy. So if you just primary attack them, you will already deal a good extra amount of damage. But we have something else. With the new essence called the Ox Horns, which says, when Whirlwind strikes the same enemy 3 times, it rips their flesh, causing them to bleed for an additional 9,285 damage every second for 2.5 seconds. So we can now transform our Whirlwind to deal more damage, which is nice because we do have the Firestorm effect already from the Whirlwind with the Bitterwind essence and our Wrath of the Berserker fire aura. And now we can let it deal even more damage. So let's just test it out. We activate it and then we roll a bit. That's not too bad. 100k crits, nearly 100k crits. That's fine. So now we have a damage boost for our Whirlwind, even a better one than before. And we have bleeds. So we now know that our primary attack is creating a bleed and the Whirlwind itself is getting a bleed. So 2 bleed effects. That brings us to an old essence that in my opinion is underrated and will now be more important than ever. Where is it? Here, the Manifold core. Gore, not core. Whirlwind damage increased by 90% for each bleed on the enemy up to a maximum of 57%. So nearly 60% damage we can gain from the bleeds. And To remind you, we are not the only one dealing bleeds. In the PvP, even other players are creating bleed effects on the enemies, which counts as well. So let's try it out again. What am I missing? Why are the crits lower? Let's try again. Here we go, 110. So we nearly got a 20k damage improvement on our critical hits. To 60, that's nice. That is some good and solid damage. So that's the other bundle of essences that works pretty good together. The Shoulder, the Bitter Wind, the Sundered Legacy, the Falling Thunder, and the Manifold Core. Later on I will show you some builds for PvP that might work pretty well and that you can try out. So let's get to the next essences. We have 2 to go, which are around the skill of the chain spear. So let me show you. It is called the Hearth hook. Chain spear now throws a piercing spear dealing damage to all enemies passes through and applying a stack of bleed. So another bleed effect we can have. It's nice that it is piercing now. So all of the other spears, as far as I know, were just hit the first enemy and then after that it's gone, which is especially annoying when you fight against Necros with their towers, which blocks nearly everything. So that one should pass through everything and hit all of the enemies it's touching. So let's check it out. Nice range. And of course, as it is generating a bleed, we can have our Banquet triggered, which is nice. Damage I think is quite average. Yeah, it's a chain spear now, dealing 40,400 damage. But we have that stacking bleed. So let's check. Go with a 25, 25. Let's go with both. Yeah, that's working good. Okay. We have another essence here that helps you even increasing that spear even more. It's the tempo change, where you get another charge for your spear. So when you think about the stacking ones, of course you need that essence to make it work, because 2 stacks are not as good as 3. And that is some nice damage you are creating over time with that stacks. Of course my bile hit now, but forget about that bile. So, from older builds we know already that there's a good essence supporting you here. It's Owen's Many Fingers, where you got additional spears, but not as a new charge, just as a wider range that you can cover with it. So that one will help you making sure that you hit the enemy. And if you hit in a big bulk, of course you get people who sidesteps out of your range and want to escape. By this you really get everyone. So that's some nice damage. This works pretty well with the Banquet, of course, because you can hit large groups of enemies and you can burn in the meantime. So you're dealing a lot of continuous damage to them. Okay, so far for the 6 new essences. I think I got them all equipped by now. Heartless Terror, Hearth Hook, the Ox Horns, the Lion's Mane, and the other one I have not equipped anymore. So, let's get into builds, because there are a lot of many possibilities to get the best out of those new items. And I will show you a few possibilities to utilize all of them. The first build, I think, is one of the most obvious with the new essences. It's a Whirlwind build where you utilize now the additional damage and the bleed effects to get the most as possible out of that build. We start with a Bitter Wind and the Sundered Legacy to get our Firestorm working, and we improve it by the Ox Horns so that our Whirlwind now is dealing bleed damage as well. When it's dealing bleed damage, we want to have the maximum of additional damage out of it. So we take the Falling Thunder to get another 30% of the damage, and then we finish it with the Manifold Core, which gives us at least 90% extra damage for each bleed. But as we have a main attack as well, with our Lashed Curse, we have at least 2 of the bleed effects, which gives us nearly 40% extra damage. So Whirlwind is our main focus, and with the Wrath of the Berserker, we got a nice dot damage. And to finalize it, we go with the new helmet, the Heartless Terror, because what is most annoying with your Whirlwind, you get stopped and get CC'd like hell. You can't even rotate in any way, and you're dealing nearly no damage. So you have 2 possibilities. You need to be fast as hell to get around the enemy, or you go with that new essence, Heartless Terror, to make you immune to any control and knockbacks. So we have our Whirlwind, which is dealing Firestorm damage from our Wrath of the Berserker. We're dealing bleed damage. We can go with the Lion's Mane as well to make it explode. So in the end, you're wasting 1 essence, you're wasting the pants, you can't do anything with them, but that's fine for now. And we go with that skills Wrath of the Berserker, Demoralize, the Whirl, and the Undying Rage to make us survive. When we look at the damage counts, it's nothing big, regular Whirlwind with all of the extra damages. You have the Demoralize with 50,600 damage and the detonation. And we got our Wrath of the Berserker with the burn damage, which is pretty much, and the Enrage to give us additional damage. So how does it look like? You have your Wrath, where you need to do some primary attack or some whirl to get speed bonus. That speed bonus is pretty crucial in the PvP. So let's reset the damage count and go for it. So you see, just in 5 seconds you can deal over 2 million damage, which is awesome. It helps you a lot when in PvP you're breaking through the enemy bulk, get at the back line of them and killing mages and demon hunters as hell, because you are immune to them. They cannot CC you in any way, and you just run over them and dealing a hell of a damage with burst and whirl. So that first build, I think it's the most obvious with those new essences. Let's get into the second one. The second build will focus on the spears. I think they're pretty nice to use because good damage with the dot, where you can move more in the background. So you don't want to be in the midst of the fight anymore. You want to be the one attacking from the outlines, which is a pretty nice job for the Barbarian, because if you get caught, you are still able to survive, and you can do a lot of damage from the outside. So what we have in here, let's look at the essences. We go again with the Heartless Terror to make us immune to the control effects. And we go again with the Lion's Mane to detonate all of the enemy wounds. What we change now is our chest. We go to the Piercing Spears, and with the pants we get another additional charge for those spears. We will not go for the big range one now. We want to have as much damage as possible. So we stick with our Wrath of the Berserker to get a speed boost. And we pick the Falling Thunder to get another damage boost. What we do now is, because we only have 2 real effective skill slots, we want to utilize those as much as possible. And we get the Loathsome Lamina, which gives us a nice shield for our Wrath of the Berserker. So with that, we go with that setup. And what we do is we activate it, we go into our sprint, and from range, we hit our spears. And once we think it's ready, we detonate it. So as you see, those can hit pretty hard. It was nearly a 400k damage or something if we go from the range, and we can deal a lot of damage to the whole enemy group. Of course, we could go now with a 6-piece Banquet, but in this case I think it's more helpful to go with a 4-piece to get the crit chance out of it, out of everyone that got burned or bleed. And we go with the 2-piece Vithus to give us the duration on our Undying Rage and on our Demoralize skill now, to be as much and as long as effective as possible. Okay, so far for the second build. So let's have a look now at the third build. We do something else in this build because we want our good and old chargeback to be as disruptive as possible for the enemies. To do so, we stick to old essences that we already know. We take the Tracker's Rage to give us a 10% attack bonus. We take the Screaming Fury to knock up all of our enemies. And now we go with the Wrath of the Berserker again, but with the new essence of the Falling Thunder. Why can we still use it? Because of our cursed property, Lashed. When you go to 6-piece Lashed, it will have a cooldown of 9 seconds, I think. So nearly every time when you charge something and you land a main attack, you will create bleed damage on the enemies, which is nice. So with that build, we still want to hit with our primary attack. So we take the Rending Bite and the Ardent Fervor, which gives us 35% attack speed when we got attacked, and give us another bleed possibility with our basic main attack. What we do is, as we charge into groups now, we want a shield. So Loathsome Lamina helps us here with a big shield once we activate our Wrath of the Berserker. And we take now the Heartless Terror into account, because even if we don't use the second essence, which lets us detonate all of the dots on the enemies, it's a good skill to just be immune to the loss of control. So whenever you know you want to jump into a big crowd and want to deal damage with a primary attack, you get CC'd as soon as possible and you will never land at least one hit. With that skill, you will land your hits now. To do so, we need again our Vithus with a 2-piece bonus of 30% on the beneficial effects. So we have a longer duration of our Demoralize, and we take the 4-piece Gloom, because when we charge into something, we directly need the crit chance. We don't need it before or afterwards, we need it when we charge into something. So the 22.5% will help us with that. So the main idea is activate your Wrath, jump into the enemy as hell, activate your Demoralize, and now hit as crazy. The issue is you will not see it here because you need an enemy to deal damage to you with anything to get that additional attack speed, which is not that good to show at a puppet because the puppet will not hurt me. But you deal some good damage with your primary attacks. You see 250k, 150k, you do pretty good amount of damage, and that additional 35% attack speed will help you to do heavy hits pretty fast. So to summarize the new essences, I think they are pretty cool. You can do, or you can be, a different barbarian as before. You can even disrupt the enemy more. You can stay alive longer with that knockback immunity, and a bit of the Whirlwind builds will be back with that additional damage you can deal now. Overall, I think it's not as good as I initially thought, because the damage bursts are not that big as I thought, but it will benefit the playstyle of all of you barbarians a lot, I think. So test it out, be creative. Please post to me if you find other builds that works in PvP. Test as much as possible and share it with us. It would be pretty nice to get a perfect build for the barbarian that just helps us to be the best barbarian out there that you ever have seen. This is my big goal. We want to make this class as good as it really is and let it shine. So thank you. If you liked this video, if you have anything for me, put it to the comments. Otherwise, click like, subscribe this channel, and see you soon.